Philippe, welcome to Too
We.
Much Information. We do meet, man.
Hey, finally.
Finally, man. How you doing, man? You good?
I'm good. I'm good.
Glad.
I mean, as good as we can be with a global pandemic.
Do you know what I mean? It's a crazy situation. First time
Crazy.
ever.
Dude.
That definitely in my lifetime.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
yeah,
I
man, it's
thought it was
crazy.
only gonna be in the movies, man. I
Yeah,
literally thought it was only gonna be in the movies.
and you are the movie man, so I know. I bet you've seen.
Right?
I bet you've seen many a movie.
Too
That,
many, and it's like, nah, that's never gonna happen. Like,
yeah, man. Yeah, it's a crazy time, man. It's a crazy time. But yeah, I'm glad to see you're good. Thank you so much for coming for joining me on this, man. Being a part of this podcast today, man. I really appreciate it. Um, I remember just from the first time that I saw your page, your podcast, it was something that jumped out at me, and I was just like, wow, this is unusual, interesting. And that was before I even listened to the podcast. So just from your Instagram page, I was just like, this person has definitely got a perspective on life, on the world, and it's something that I'll definitely want to kind of bounce ideas off, man. So thank you for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
absolutely, absolutely. Trust me, I'm just as ecstatic. I found this community lively. Let's say.
Yes, yeah, perfect word, man.
Yeah.
All right. So how I usually do start all my podcasts is really just to kind of get into the to your family upbringing.
Yeah.
How were you created to be the person that you are? So parents, were you raised with both? One, none. How what was your upbringing like, man?
Uh, my upbringing it's not too different from well, at least from where I'm from. Originally from Haiti.
Okay.
I was born in. I always tell the story. My mom came here for 2 weeks in New York, Nassau County, popped me out. 2 weeks later, went back to Haiti, and I lived all my life in Haiti till I was 19, and they shipped me back out here
Okay.
to get a college education and everything. Upbringing was very traditional. Very, very traditional. Like, we were told there was only three jobs we could do.
Okay. And what were those
That's
three
it.
jobs?
Lawyer, doctor, or engineer.
Wow.
I was
Wow.
like, three jobs. That was it. That was it. There was no. I was like, what? That doesn't make sense to me at all. The world never makes sense to me at all from get go, man.
Okay.
Uh, but uh, but yeah, it's just a very traditional country. There's not much outside influence up until lately.
Right.
But it was kind of pretty close-minded, kind of go to school, do your thing. I just never adapted to school. I don't know how much. I passed a couple beatings, if not a lot of beatings from grandma. Uh,
Yes, yes. The
But grandma,
famous
because grandma
grandma.
raised me. My both my parents are doctors. So they
Okay.
were, and they started when I was born. They started their residency. So my
Right.
my my childhood was with my grandma.
Okay.
As they were in and out. And then we moved out, and that's when I started actually being raised by my parents.
Right.
And then 18 after graduated from high school, shipped to here, the United States, and said, "Hey, make something of yourself."
And how was that for you?
Hey,
Actually, before we go there, so you was
yeah,
raised in Haiti, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, being raised with your grandmother, that's
yeah,
a older person, someone from a different generation to even your parents, let alone to you.
yeah,
So there must have been some interesting lessons and I want to say morals, but that's not really the word I'm looking for. But just some interesting parts of your personality that were only exist because of the fact that your grandmother raised you. Are there any? Is there any that you can think of things that separate you? Let's say, for example, from somebody who was raised by someone who was a bit closer to them in age, closer to them in generation, if that makes sense.
Oh, it's just a couple of speech here and there from my grandma, and it was always something with we call it mammy. It was
Okay,
always something with mammy.
right,
She was an exceptional woman. Very determined. Made something out of nothing. had to raise like 4 or 5 other siblings by
Right.
herself by the age of 14. So
Wow.
she grew up early. Let's just say she grew up
Yeah.
early.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't know, we didn't know the definition of love for my grandma, not at all. But we understood every lesson she threw at us from the back of her sandals, though. 'Cause so there's
Yeah.
that. But my grandma was just very very strict. She had an idea of what she wanted her kids and her grandkids to be,
Hmm.
and that was it for her. Like even I remember even the things like for example like in the house, like because Haiti is a country we speak both Creole and French,
Right.
but Creole is the indigenous
Yes.
language. It's like it's the dialect that became a language
Hmm.
versus French, which was the colonial language, and put it right. We're not allowed to speak Creole in the house. she did.
No way.
She didn't want that shit. No, she only wanted like French speaking. Like she had a picture. So probably one of the favorite speeches I had from my grandma was when I was leaving for college.
Mhm.
She told me, "Look, it's only 4 years. It's not about girls. It's not about. It's about 4 years. You go, you study, you make something of yourself, and then you can worry about girls." Who says that to a college person, right? It's like that's like number one reason you go to college, especially in the United States, is for
Yeah.
this. Uh, but uh, but no, it was that she was like and she was so strict. Oh my gosh, she was so strict and I'll say traditional because
Yeah.
ignorant at this point doesn't mean anything because she'll be like, you don't date any Asians, you don't date any,
Oh
you don't
wow.
date any.
And what was
She had like
what
a
was what was it? What
whole
yeah?
list.
What was the reason for that? What was the reason that she gave for that?
Mindset, traditional mindset. Uh,
Just did she just mean anyone that was different to you, or was there
basic,
specific people?
basically anyone that
Okay.
was different to me or basically Haitian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I hear
yeah.
you.
It was just
How did
like
how did that work out for you?
that. 3 months in, first guy I did it was American white.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And like, no, listen at all. That didn't work out at all.
No, of course.
I was somewhat the rebel of the family. But yeah,
Hmm.
it was an interesting dynamic. My grandma. I was the oldest in the family too. So me
Okay,
with
firstborn, yeah.
yeah, firstborn. So I got the whooping.
Yeah, and that's a lot of responsibility as well. To be
Yeah,
fair,
yeah, yeah. Had
you
to
have to
watch over.
set that. You have to set that example.
Yeah, yeah. And they, oh, trust me, they made me the example. But no, but tell me a little bit about yourself. Who's Chuck Wilson?
All right.
Why the UK?
Why am I in the UK? Yeah, I was born here. Um, I was born here. I am 38 years old. Um, I was born to my mother, who, as is obvious, I suppose, not pretty
Yeah,
hard to be born to
I'm
anyone
like, I
else.
mean,
But
I mean,
yes,
this
I was born
story
to my
starts
mother.
interesting.
Um, yeah, so I was born to my mother in London, North London. That's where I'm from. My mother was born in Jamaica. She came here when she was maybe, I think, under 5 years old, maybe around that sort of age, with her mother. Her mother was a nurse. My mum was a social worker. Um, my father left when I believe when I was maybe like two, definitely under the age of 5, and so I was raised solely by my mum. Um, when I was born, my mum was a Rastafarian. Um, so I
What's up with
was
wearing Bob
raised.
Marley shirt?
So I was brought up in a very kind of Afrocentric way. Kind of, I identified with you when you spoke about never feeling less than someone who didn't look like you.
Yep,
Always feeling empowered and feeling
yep,
like
yep.
the majority. I identified with that. Um, so then, so that was I was raised in a Rastafarian community. And then for a few years, my mum became a Muslim for a little while. She left Rastafari and then became a Muslim, and which was maybe for about 4 or 5 years. Her and one of her good friends. So my aunt is still a Muslim at the moment now, but they became Muslim at the same time. So I learned a little bit about that culture, and then my mum kind of went back to I think what she was maybe raised in, which was Christianity and that kind of, but always still having Afrocentricity and
So Black
reverence
Jesus and all.
for all of that good stuff, right? So, uh, so there was a lot of I got a very broad view of the main influences in my immediate world, if that makes sense. Because I was around a lot of Caribbean people, so Rastafarian is a big element of that. I'm in a I don't know what you call it, a Christian country, for example. So I had a broad understanding of that, and there's a lot of Muslims here as well. So I had a broad understanding of that as well. So I've always been able to kind of speak to people with a kind of base level of understanding of their perspective, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Right. So yeah. So that's my upbringing. Fast forward, school. I was alright academically, and then obviously I kind of, well, not obviously, but I ended up veering off. Chosen. My mum was very focused on education. She was maybe not in the same situation as your grandmother of being able to kind of be. She was able to be strict with me until I got to secondary school, and then when
Yeah.
I got to secondary school, I kind of my rebellious nature came out, and I was willing to get the beatings until I got big enough to where it wasn't really. She couldn't really. It was.
She could re-
She'd
it
have to
didn't do
use too
anything
many.
anymore. It just
Yeah,
didn't do
no,
anything.
no, don't get me wrong, man.
She's like,
My mum was a
I'm done.
professional
I'm done. I give up.
weapons. Nah, my mum was on weapons until she kicked me out of the house, man. I got. You ever been beat with a phone book?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I had
so
thrown
yeah,
the phone book, not beat with it, thrown the phone book.
yeah. My mum two hands and beat me down on the sofa, you know. So yeah,
It's like you're looking at it, it's like two people talking about their beatings and laughing their minds off. It's like, hey, you're a
yeah. It's
psychopath. Yeah, pretty much.